Hello and welcome to our second tutorial on Python. We did the Python intro last time, and now we're getting a little bit more advanced. Last time we learned how to save one piece of data to one variable, and we talked about variables, and every variable has a name and a piece of data saved to that name. This week we're going to talk about lists and tuples and maps, which is where you can actually save multiple variables, multiple pieces of data to one variable. And so let's get going. You want to create a new REPL. So click this button or click this little blue button over here, or right here it says create, and I have Python there. This one, name it your name, and Python tuples or maps or something like that, or Python 2. You could just do Python 2 since this is the second one. Create it. It'll take you to a blank Python page. And there we go. And so let's talk some terms that you probably need to know. If there's going to be a quiz with this, you need to know these terms. Once again, we have variables, which is the basic building block of computer programming. Variable is something that can vary or change throughout the life of your program, and it's everything upon which everything in your program is built. So they're the basic building blocks. Last week, like I said, we learned how to do variables, right? And we learned to say Kevin equals hungry, right? And then when I print Kevin, it's going to print out hungry to the console down here. I may get around to it eventually. There it goes, hungry. And so, yeah, easy. However, this week, another word you need to know, in Python, they call them tuples. In different programming languages, they call them different things. But a tuple is a list. Just think about that. A tuple is a list. It's a list of things. And then one more word you need to know is a map. A map is a list of things but connected to other things, which we'll get to that on down the line. So let's talk about tuples and how to do that. Once again, we're following along with the assignment, and the assignment is to make 3 tuples. The first one is your favorite games. And so right now we're just going to declare a variable, name it games, and we're going to say games equals, but instead of just typing in games in like a list, like sorry and Connect 4 and soccer, and now when I print it, right, it's just going to print out all those things. Now there's actually a way that we can separate those things so that we can access one item in that list. And the way we do that is we use curly brackets. We use parentheses, sorry. We'll get to curly brackets later. We use parentheses, and we separate each data with a comma. And so the assignment was to name 5 of your favorite games. How you do this is because each game name is a string. Remember, a string is any string of words or characters or text. So we put it in a string, and then outside the quotation marks, it's very important, outside the quotation marks you put a comma. And that tells the computer program this is a separate piece of data. That these are 5 separate pieces of data, not one big piece of data, but 5 separate things. And so we say soccer, and then we say rugby. Maybe we like rugby. Maybe we like Americana football. Or maybe we like, oh, what happened there? Maybe, go to the end. Maybe we like baseball. And maybe you could put 5 of whatever game you like in there. Maybe, I know some of you like volleyball, right? Now when I print games, it will print all of them, but it will print it as I typed it up there. But now, let's say I just want the 3rd game in the list. So now in the square brackets, I can write 3. Now I want you to stop here and think real quick, which one is it going to print? Which one do you think it's going to print? I bet you said football, but it's actually, wait for it, baseball. Why is that? Well, in computers, they always start numbering at 0. There's a very good reason for that we don't go over in this class, but soccer is actually 0. Watch. Soccer is actually 0. Rugby is actually 1. Football's 2, baseball 3, volleyball's 4. So that's a trick. Be careful. There will be quiz questions about that. Games is 1. Soccer is 0. It always starts at 0. Another cool thing you could do with tuples is you can specify a range. So let's say I have 300 pieces of data saved to my variable. I could say print 250 to 300, or actually it'd be 249 to 399, to 249 to 399, or whatever, 299. Anyway, so, but right now I could say print 224. In computer programming, a colon usually means 4, by the way. Or 2. It actually means 2. So print 224, 2 as in T-O. Now it'll print football and baseball because that's 2 and 4. Notice it stops and doesn't print 4. If we want it to print 4, we actually have to go 1 extra there. And so, so that's how you can print it out and access just one piece at a time. Now, if I just say print 2, remember you need square brackets and parentheses. It says football, which is that's 0, 1, 2, right? You always start with 0. So if we want to print the whole thing, it's pretty easy. We just say games. Now, the next part was food. We want to print our favorite foods. And I like pizza. You probably do too. I don't know who doesn't like pizza. I like spaghetti. And I like bagels. I always eat a bagel first thing in the morning. And what else do I like? What other food do I like? I like burritos. Who doesn't like a good burrito or a good taco? I bet you guys didn't know this. You know what separates a burrito from a taco? I used to think it was hard shell v soft shell, but it's actually whether or not it has beans. I thought that was interesting. So I actually don't like burritos as much as I like tacos, by the way. But anyway, they're both great. They're awesome. Oh, last thing I suppose I like is ice cream. Who doesn't? But I really like ice cream, guys. Okay, so now we have two variables. We have games and food, which was the first two parts of this assignment. The next thing I wanted to show you, and the reason you had to do two, is you can actually add tuples together, just like you could add strings together in last week's assignment. And this is kind of where it gets cool. So now part of the assignment was to make a new variable named favorites, but instead of setting up as a tuple, I'm just going to say games plus food. And then I'm going to go to the next line and I'm going to say print favorites. And watch what happens. It's going to print out both lists. See, we have the games and then we have the food. Isn't that cool? And I can also print the index of favorites. I can say print out, we'll say 3 to 7 on my list. I have 10 items there. And there we go. It adds them together and it re-indexes them. And instead of food 0, then pizza becomes food 5, I think. Yeah, 5, because we always start 0. So yeah, so in fact, if I want to print favorites 5, it should be pizza, I would think. We'll see what it prints out. Yep, pizza. So isn't that cool? You can actually add tuples together in Python. You can't actually do that in other computer programming languages. This is the reason why people really like Python. So yeah, so we could have 10 tuples of hundreds of items each, and we could just add them together in one giant tuple. You can practice doing that if you want. It's kind of fun to do. So then the next thing I want to teach you about is maps. Maps are tuples, but instead of indexing them with the numbers, the 0, 1, 2, 3 counting, you actually connect each piece of data to another piece of data in the tuple. A great way to think about this is a two-dimensional sort of chart where you may have a database and you may have names down the side, and then across the top you may have last name, first name, so on and so forth. So let me teach you how to do a map real quick. For tuples, you use parentheses, but for maps, you use curly brackets. And so I think in the assignment, I had you do first name, last name. So that's what we're going to do here. And I'm just going to do members of my family. So I'm going to make a tuple called family. But instead of parentheses, I'm going to use these guys. These guys are huge in computer programming. They're used everywhere. We've already used them for other languages I've done. They're right next to the P on your American keyboards if you have an American keyboard. And you have to hold down Shift, and they're right above the square bracket. And they're right there for you. And how you do this is each separate piece of data still needs to be in its own quotation marks, but instead of separating them by commas, you separate them with colons. So here's how this works. So my name's Kevin, right? And that needs to be in quotation marks, right? So that's one piece of data. He's his own piece of data, so he gets quotation marks. But I say colon Lambert. See that? Now, when I go to print this, I don't use a number like I used right here. Instead, I say print family, and then in these, I put Kevin. and now it should print Lambert. See that? It's saying, we're asking it, when we ask it to print this, we're saying print the other piece of data that is attached to Kevin. And so it says Lambert. So now I'm actually going to do my sisters. I'm actually going to change this to siblings because my sisters have different names. I have two sisters, Katrina and Julia. So I'm going to say Julia, and Julia married my brother-in-law, Derek Miller, and so Julia Miller, comma, that separates each set of data. So now we're talking about sets of data, and we say Julia Miller, and then my older sister's name, Katrina, and she married my brother-in-law, Eric Velo. So her maiden name is Velo. And now I'm going to say print family Julia. And it's going to print. It's going to give me a traceback error. Why is it going to give me that? Oh, because I didn't change the variable name. Traceback, by the way, means it can't find the variable. There we go. It's going to print Miller. So that's a map. We have one piece of data and it's attached to another piece of data. You can use this for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of sets of data. In fact, most computer programs, guys, actually have thousands of sets of data saved to one variable name, which is wild, isn't it? Isn't that just crazy? So yeah. So if we print Julia Miller, and then we can print siblings, Katrina. Oh, once again, you need quotation marks. And that's gonna say Velo, right? So yeah, kind of a really neat thing. I haven't tried this yet, but let's see if I do siblings 1. Ideally, that should print Julia's full name, but it might give me an error. Yeah, give me an error because it doesn't index maps. Maps are not indexed. Index means the computer gives it its own numbers. So tuples are indexed, right? You can call them by a number that the computer itself has given to it. Maps don't have numbers. They have other pieces of data attached to it. That's the difference. So hopefully you had fun. Go back, review this, pause it when you need to pause this to catch it up. But this is this week's assignment. To turn it in, you just share the shareable link with me that's right in this corner. So thanks for paying attention. Hopefully you learned something. Let me know if you have questions.